As Trump flies F-22s to the edge of the South China Sea, are America's once feared stealth Raptors now more showpiece than real deterrent against a rapidly modernizing Chinese Air Force? Is the jet once billed as the world's top air superiority fighter already outclassed in the Pacific, where newer Chinese designs and updated US platforms are starting to leave it behind? When F-22 Raptors roar out of Philippine bases near Chinese waters, are they projecting strength, or quietly exposing how much of Trump's air power is built on aging hardware? After weeks of COPE Thunder drills, did Beijing see a fearsome air armada, or a handful of Raptors whose limits in range, networking and versatility blunt their deterrent impact? By forward deploying F-22s so close to China, has Washington just given the PLA a front-row view of the Raptors' biggest weaknesses, aging stealth and surprisingly short legs? And in any real Pacific showdown, can Trump's aging F-22s genuinely take on Xi's newest J-20s, J-35s and J-16s? Or does the balance of air power now tilt away from America's stealth icon? As the US forward deploys F-22s to the Philippines, more analysts are asking how much real combat value the jets still bring against China rather than just symbolic signaling. US Air Force F-22s have been operating out of Bossa Air Base during exercise COPE Thunder 261, using the Philippine facility as a testbed for wartime dispersal concepts. Their sorties have taken them close to contested South China Sea waters and the choke point of the Luzon Strait, key corridors any China-Taiwan conflict would run through. Washington presents the deployment as a way to expand pressure across the first island chain, showing it can base fifth-generation fighters much closer to China's coastline. The drills showcased US and Philippine forces staging joint sorties from a relatively austere, forward base that would likely be under threat in any real conflict. At the same time, they underlined doubts about whether light FA-50s and aging F-22s truly fit the demands of deep-range, high-end Pacific combat. The COPE Thunder rotation ran from April 6 to 17th, with more than 90 US airmen deployed in theater to support the Raptor contingent and other aircraft. Reports say around 30 F-22 sorties were generated within a larger joint force of roughly 2,800 personnel from both countries. Military commentators argue that this visible show of strength may mask deeper structural weaknesses in US air power, especially in a long, attritional Pacific fight. The F-22 first flew back in 1990, yet production ended in 2011 after only a small fleet actually entered service, leaving the US with a boutique force of aging airframes. Its avionics and onboard computers now lag behind those in the F-35, the new F-15EX, and China's latest fighters, which were designed from the start around modern data-centric warfare. The F-22 is an air superiority fighter built primarily for air-to-air combat, optimized to hunt and kill enemy aircraft rather than strike ground targets. It first flew in 1990 and only entered frontline service in the mid-2000s after long delays and heavy cost overruns. Production ended in 2011, less than 6 years after it finally reached operational units, leaving fewer than 200 Raptors in US hands. Its avionics suite is less advanced than those on the latest F-15EX and F-35A, and trails newer Chinese jets such as the J-20, J-35, and upgraded J-16 in sensor fusion and data sharing. Its stealth shaping and materials are a generation behind the more refined F-35 design, making it somewhat easier to detect as radar technology improves. Despite its size, the F-22's combat radius is shorter than the F-35's and less than half that claimed for China's J-20, a serious handicap over the Pacific's vast distances. The jet, however, struggles to share data smoothly with other platforms, making it harder to plug into the kind of dense, network-centric battlespace modern air forces rely on. It is armed mainly with air-to-air missiles and carries limited air-to-ground options, giving it far less multi-role strike versatility than most newer fighters. The US is now planning a gradual retirement for the Raptor, not because the airframes are worn out, but because its design limits make it less suitable for future wars. The F-22 was built for the highest-end dogfights, yet its electronics today lag badly behind new arrivals that were designed for cloud-like data sharing from day one. Long program delays meant the jet's computers were already approaching obsolescence by the time it finally entered service, forcing expensive retrofits that never fully closed the gap. Decades after first flight, the Raptor still struggles in modern, data-heavy air networks where aircraft, drones and ships constantly swap targeting information in real time. Newer fighters fuse sensor data from multiple sources and share it seamlessly. By comparison, the F-22 often looks like a stealthy lone wolf that is partially deaf to the wider picture. Its stealth edge has also dulled over time, as later F-35 variants and Chinese designs like the J-20 have pushed shaping and coatings further. Despite carrying more internal fuel than the F-35, the F-22's range is surprisingly shorter due to design trade-offs and the way it is flown. In the Pacific, where distance rules every plan, that short leg becomes a critical operational liability that forces reliance on vulnerable tankers and forward bases. As China builds up the ability to hit air refueling tankers and forward bases, the Raptor's range handicap looks more and more like a glaring vulnerability. The US Air Force started planning early retirements for part of the F-22 fleet long before the airframes wore out physically, signaling a loss of confidence in its future relevance. By 2022, senior officials were openly signaling that the Raptor would have limited value in the kind of hot wars they were now planning for, especially in the Indo-Pacific. Commanders concluded that the combination of short range, poor networking, and a narrow weapons fit would be crippling liabilities in a long-range fight against China. The jet is still only a fraction of the way through its structural life, yet is already seen as a bad bet for the Pacific theater compared with more flexible platforms. Notably, the F-22 was absent from frontline roles in the 2026 US-Israeli air campaign against Iran. Instead, upgraded F-15s and F-35s carried the central roles in long-range strike missions and airborne command and control over contested airspace. Unlike many other USA aircraft, the F-22 cannot carry long-range standoff strike missiles internally and has only limited options even on external hardpoints. That limitation effectively confines the Raptor to air-to-air missions in modern warfare, a narrow role for such an expensive platform. As a result, it is now seen as one of the least versatile post-Cold War fighters, still excellent in its original niche, but weak or absent in almost every other mission set. Analysts warn that F-22s forward-based in the Philippines could struggle badly in a real conflict with China, especially if bases and tankers come under sustained missile attack. In air-to-air combat today, cutting-edge sensors and data-sharing networks often decide who sees, shoots and survives first, not just raw maneuverability. In that domain, Chinese J-20s, J-35s and even modernized J-16s are seen as closing the gap with, or in some areas surpassing, the aging Raptor. Without standoff weapons of its own, the F-22 also cannot easily pivot into long-range strike roles if the air-to-air fight remains limited. That leaves a stealth fighter that looks increasingly outmatched in its core domain and noticeably weak in every other mission it might be asked to perform. Put together, in a future Pacific showdown, the Raptor risks looking less like Trump's ultimate trump card, and more like an expensive, forward-based asset that China has learned how to work around.